As most of you all know, I'm Frances Coleman, and I have the honor of being the Dean of the Library, and it's really a wonderful opportunity for me. I have one of the best faculty and staff here at the library that ever in the world. All you have to do is say, well, what about doing this? And they say, okay, can we do it? So they are very good, and you'll see a lot of the things that they have done tonight with the programs and with the different things that we're doing. I'll talk to you in just a minute about the program. Probably, as some of you all know, our very special guest, Judge Frank Williams, could not be with us tonight. He was stranded at the airport, and I know that you all can, some of you can greatly appreciate that, but we are going to bring him in a conference call, and Stephen, we hope it works. We worked on it all afternoon. Everybody hold your breath.
Hello.
Judge Williams.
I'm here.
All right.
All right.
Judge Williams, good evening. My name is Frances Coleman, and I think we had the opportunity to meet when you were on our campus one or two other times, but we especially appreciate your joining with us tonight, and we're sorry that you were stranded at the airport, but we're going to have much better weather next time and much better accommodations in May, so we hope that you will be with us at that time. Judge Williams, sir?
I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful. We thought perhaps, Judge Williams, we've been so excited about this event tonight that maybe we would have maybe 20 or 30 people who might come and join with us. I want to share with you that we have 110 people with us tonight who are celebrating and who join me in appreciating the wonderful trust that you and other members of the association have placed in our library and in our university. Thank you so much.
Believe me, it's mutual.
Thank you. For starters tonight, and you all know that I am very informal in everything that I do, but I wanted to go over the packet with you just so that you can follow along. We are not going to have a lot of introductions, so in essence of time and the continuity of the program, we're going to move forward. Certainly you are hearing from me now, and then later on you will hear from John Rush, who is Vice President for Development and Alumni here at Mississippi State University, and he will bring the invocation. We will have greetings and special introductions for our own Amy Tuck, and then we will have Dr. Mark Keenum, our President, who will come forth and give an official welcome and some remarks. Then our own John Marszalek will come forth, and he's going to be wearing 2 or 3 hats tonight. Judge Williams has officially anointed him as being second in command for Judge Williams, and then certainly John has his own place in history and his own record here at Mississippi State University, so we appreciate that very much. Then we will have the signing and the acceptance of the papers will take place here, and then Chip Templeton, who is the chair of our Friends of the Library, will close the program for us, and then we will have dinner. We do appreciate your being here. As you know, this is a very prestigious collection that we have had entrusted to us, and we hope, Judge Williams, that you will know that we will always do our very best to fulfill the responsibilities that we have agreed to assume here. Our special appreciation to the University Administration for assisting in making this possible. This is a team effort here at Mississippi State University, and that's one thing that I think makes Mississippi State so very special, is that it is a team effort, and that has really had great meaning for our university, and also throughout the state, because we do reach out. You know, we team together to help our own state. Dr. Keenum, we especially appreciate your continuing the effort here and your support. We've already tried to make a librarian out of Dr. Keenum. Bless his heart. He has worn these white gloves for us 3 or 4 times. So he knows all about archival procedures. So he was a good sport, and we appreciate it very much. Certainly our appreciation is to 2 other individuals, to John Marzalek for his outstanding accomplishments. This led to his being named Executive Director and Managing Editor of the Association Papers. And John, we appreciate your leadership on behalf of this. Several years ago, and I guess that kind of dates me, and maybe you too, John, but we talked about, as we watched the addition to the library develop, Dr. Zacharias, he and I talked about an eagle soaring. We said we just needed to have an eagle to soar out here. So I guess the acquisition of this collection is our eagle soaring. So thank you so much for your part in that. And as I said, Dr. Williams, we very much appreciate your trust and your confidence in us. And if John doesn't do right, we will call you. Tonight's program and events have been a team effort, and 2 individuals who have been right there with us. Meredith Gooder has helped us, and especially has Amy Tuck, who has shared with us her expertise in working with the different aspects of such a program, and we appreciate that very much. I would also like the members of my library faculty and staff who are here to stand and be recognized. They work so hard. We will now hear from John Rush.
Please bow your heads in prayer with me, please. Most gracious, kind, and giving Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with grateful hearts, hearts of thanks for this university and the role that it's played in our state, our region, and our country. We thank you for the thousands of students that you've entrusted with us. We thank you tonight for the special significance surrounding this event. We thank you for the place in history of our country that is recognized tonight, and more importantly for the perseverance of our country and the unity of our country that continues today, and the many freedoms and liberties that we also enjoy. And we just thank you for the leadership of General Grant and his papers being here, and ask you to continue that forward with our current military leaders and soldiers that are all over the world protecting us, and ask that you be with them. We thank you, Lord, tonight for this meal that we're about to receive, and ask that you bless it to the nourishment of our bodies, and ask that you continue to guide, guard, and direct each of us. In Christ's name, amen.
Good evening, and what an honor to be with all of you for what is undeniably one of the great historic occasions at Mississippi State University and at our wonderful MSU library led by Dean Francis Coleman. We thank you for honoring us with your presence this evening as we formally accept the responsibility of hosting the presidential papers of Ulysses S. Grant. We welcome you to Mississippi State. You'll hear more about the significance of this incredible collection later in the program. It's my pleasure to recognize a number of our distinguished guests who are joining us to commemorate this event. We have 2 former presidents of Mississippi State that are with us this evening, both whom have made incredible contributions to Mississippi State University. First of all, I'd like to recognize Dr. Donald Zacharias, his wife, Mrs. Tommy Zacharias. We thank you for your years of service and your continued support of Mississippi State. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. and Mrs. Donald Zacharias. Next, I'd like to present to you Dr. Roy Ruby and his wife, Patricia. Dr. Ruby, we appreciate your leadership as our interim president and your 40 years of service to Mississippi State. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. and Mrs. Roy Ruby. We are very honored that our mayor of Starkville is with us this evening, the Honorable Dan Camp and his wife, Mrs. Camp. Would you please stand? Let us recognize you. Thank you, Mayor. We certainly want to recognize the representatives of our congressional delegation who are with us here this evening, and we thank you for your presence. First of all, Mr. Hank Mosley. Mr. Mosley is representing Congressman Greg Harper. Mr. Stanley Showles is also here representing Congressman Harper, and we appreciate you being with us at MSU. And next, I'm so pleased to present to you Mr. Kyle Stewart, representing Senator Roger Wicker, and soon to be here on campus with us as a member of the MSU family. And his wife, Susan, is also here. Dr. Elbert Hilliard and his wife, are they here? Did they make it this evening? They did, yes. Dr. Hilbert and his wife, who for more than 30 years, Dr. Hilliard for more than 30 years served as director of the Mississippi Department of Archives and History and now serves as Director Emeritus, and he continues to be active in the Mississippi Historical Society. So once again, Dr. Hilliard, we thank you and Mrs. Hilliard for being with us. Also, Mr. Bob Bailey. Mr. and Miss Bailey, they are here, and Mr. Bob Bailey is president of the G.V. Sonny Montgomery Foundation. We welcome you this evening. We have outstanding student leaders on the campus of Mississippi State University, and tonight we are very honored that the president of the Mississippi State University Student Association, Mr. Braxton Coombs, is with us, and we welcome you. There are so many MSU officials here with us this evening, community leaders, and members of the press, and we welcome you all to this wonderful event. It is now my honor to introduce our president and our First Lady. Dr. Keenum and our First Lady, Rhonda, have brought with them many valuable assets: energy, optimism, dedication, and a vision. They are both graduates of Mississippi State, and their commitment to this institution and its future is tremendous. They love Mississippi State. They're devoted to its future, and they want this institution and the individuals who are the heart and soul of Mississippi State to succeed. They are pouring all of their energies into providing the leadership to see that that happens. Mrs. Keenum's dynamic style, her impeccable professional credentials, as well as her deep knowledge and her love of Mississippi State is apparent to everyone. Would you please join me in welcoming our First Lady, Mrs. Rhonda Keenum. To Dr. Keenum and our First Lady, we thank you for the commitment that you have made, and we're proud to have you back home in Bulldog Country. Dr. Keenum holds 3 degrees from Mississippi State University, and the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences recognized him as an alumni fellow years ago, and that's the highest distinction of that college. He has had a distinguished public service career in Washington, D.C., both as Chief of Staff for Senator Thad Cochran and more recently as Undersecretary of the United States Department of Agriculture. The mission area that he directed had a total operating budget of $1.7 billion and approximately $40 billion in program authority. With Dr. and Mrs. Mark Keenum steering our course, we believe that the best is yet to come for Mississippi State University. Dr. Keenum, we thank you for your leadership. Would you please give a warm welcome to Mississippi State University's 19th president, Dr. Mark Keenum.
Thank you very much, Governor Tuck, for that very kind introduction. Wow, this is a very special night. What a special occasion for me to be a part of and to be here with 2 of our distinguished former presidents and all of you distinguished guests. We're honored to have you here. Welcome to Mississippi State. I tell you, it's a great way to be wrapping up my first month on the job. To be here, to be the formal recipient of this very prestigious collection of distinguished papers, and I'm just honored to be part of this ceremony. I tell you, I think it was my 2nd day on the job. I got a telephone call from the Chicago Tribune, And it was a reporter who was doing a story on the grant papers in Mississippi State and us receiving these papers. And she wanted to know my reaction to it. Well, I was excited and thrilled and overjoyed that our university would be selected by the U.S. Grant Association for this prestigious collection of memorabilia and artifacts and papers that are just so prestigious. And it's very fitting for our university to do so. And she said, well, don't you think it's somewhat peculiar that the papers of U.S. Grant would go down to a deep South university such as yours? And I thought to myself, well, I said, you know, you think about the state of Mississippi, and you think about Ulysses S. Grant's career, and there probably was not another state in the Union that had more to do with propelling Ulysses S. Grant than the state of Mississippi did. It gave President Lincoln the confidence to select him to go on to be the commander-in-chief of the Union Army, and then that propelled him in his political career to become a two-term president of the United States. So it's part of our history, part of our heritage, of our state, of this region of the country, of our nation. It's something that scholars, historians of this era, they'll come here to Mississippi State to access this very prestigious collection. And it is voluminous. I've seen it. It's just amazing the volume of material that we have here at our library. And Dean Coleman is going to do a wonderful job of protecting this material for generations to come. So I'm just excited about the opportunity for Mississippi State University to house these prestigious papers. And another point of interest that I found to be somewhat interesting is I've done some studying on the first president of Mississippi State University, General Stephen D. Lee, who was a lieutenant general in the Confederate Army. And he was a combatant of Ulysses S. Grant, the Battle of Vicksburg. And they were, again, combatants. And as he became president of this university, years after the war, he put it behind him, and he moved forward, and he worked with his former combatants at arms to help create the National Military Park at Vicksburg. He led that effort. In fact, in June of this year, we'll commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Stephen D. Lee Memorial at the Vicksburg National Military Park. He was a leader in that regard. So we have close ties to this individual, Ulysses S. Grant, as an institution with our leadership here at this university. It's a very prestigious collection. It goes back to Ulysses S. Grant's early career in the military when he got out of West Point. He served in the Army right out of his commissioning out of West Point. He served in the Battle of the Mexican War, and then his career after that, and then obviously his work during his leadership during the Civil War, and then on through the Reconstruction era, and then as president. Again, it's a very impressive amount of material. And then when you think about the company that we hold, very few universities are repositories for presidential papers. And two that come to mind are University of Virginia, that houses the papers of President Thomas Jefferson, Princeton University, which houses the papers of former President Woodrow Wilson, and now Mississippi State University, that houses the papers of former President Ulysses S. Grant. It's quite impressive to be in that league of universities. It's a high honor. It's very prestigious for our university. I'm also deeply indebted to Dr. John Marshallek, who helped to lead the effort in his involvement with the U.S. Grant Association. He was instrumental in helping to orchestrate this whole affair we're celebrating here tonight. And Dr. Marshallek, I want to, on behalf of the university, to thank you for your leadership in bringing this collection to our university. I want to recognize him. Please join me. And Chief Justice Williams, we are very sorry that you cannot be here with us in person. We understand the issues of modern day travel all too well. I do particularly. But we're very honored as well for your leadership and your efforts to help make this a successful occasion for our university. We are deeply grateful. And again, to all of you, I'm glad that you're here to celebrate this very special occasion. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, President Keenan. I appreciate those most kind words, and thank you all for being here this evening. It's overwhelming to see so many people here to celebrate this great occasion. When Chief Justice Williams and Dean Francis Coleman and I were working to bring the grant papers to Mississippi State, to the Mitchell Memorial Library, I told them that once the papers were inside our doors, I was going to let out the loudest scream ever heard in Octibaha. Now, Chief Justice Williams said, "What's an Octibaha?" But I have to report, I have to be honest, I have not yet let out that scream, and I got thinking about it. Really, there's a better way to celebrate. You know, there has been, I think, as the President pointed out, there's been a lot of media speculation about Grant returning to Mississippi. But I agree with what he said. We may have to talk to Alan Marcus, our history department, and maybe we'll hire the President to teach some history classes, because he told me earlier that he really was interested in history and almost became a history major here. So we would have met a lot earlier if that had been the case. And I was a pussycat in the classroom, so but, you know, I think he was right. What better place than Mississippi to have the U.S. Grant papers? It was, after all, at Vicksburg that U.S. Grant became a worldwide, a historical figure. What better university to house these papers, as he pointed out, than Mississippi State, whose first president, Stephen D. Lee, not only fought against Grant, but then also was involved in the establishment of the Vicksburg National Military Park. I think if Grant and S.D. Lee had been here tonight, they'd be ringing a cowbell too. Now, to give you a little background on the Grant Association, it began in 1962 during the Civil War centennial, when a group of the nation's leading historians met to foster the preservation and publication of the papers of this major American figure. They entrusted this task to a then young Harvard history graduate, John Y. Simon. From that point, in 1962 at Ohio State, and then moving in 1964 to Southern Illinois University, Professor Simon accumulated this Grant collection. We estimate it consists of over 10,000 linear feet of material. 10,000 linear feet, just imagine that. And it consists of copies, facsimiles of every known letter and speech of and about U.S. Grant. We also have in the collection around 1,000 books about U.S. Grant, as good a collection of U.S. Grant publications as there is anywhere. This is the collection about the man who led the military effort to preserve the Union, and then as president from 1869 to 1877, it was Grant who led the reunited nation onto the world stage for the first time. He's not been appreciated for the work that he did as president, and it was significant. Housed at this Mitchell Memorial Library, our beloved library, we now have a collection that, as Dr. Keenan pointed out, matches us with great universities throughout the country. The Chicago Tribune, for example, in their account, put us in the same league with the University of Virginia and its Jefferson collection, and Columbia University and its Alexander Hamilton collection, and we could mention others. But we are in the big leagues when it comes to this collection. The Mitchell Memorial Library is also the site of the editorial project that is going to complete the publication of the Grant papers. There are already 30 volumes in print that John Y. Simon led. Here, the Grant Association, in cooperation with the Mitchell Memorial Library, and I emphasize the word cooperation, it's been a wonderful experience. We're going to do a number of things in addition to putting out these additional volumes. We're going to digitize all the published volumes. We're going to produce a cumulative index. We're going to edit the Grant Memoirs, one of the great pieces of literature in American letters. And through the generosity of the Grant Association, we are going to be able to offer up to 5 travel grants a year to bring scholars and students to the Mitchell Memorial Library to research these materials. I have to tell you, I've already gotten emails from people asking when can they come. So we are going to be a center of study, no question about this. Now, a lot of people made this possible, including 2 interim presidents and our new president, Dr. Keenum. But I think if you asked anyone involved in this process, I think they would all agree that without the determination, the persistence, the skill, and the optimism of our library dean, Francis Coleman, we would not be here tonight. So I'm going to take a point of privilege. Thank you, Mercy. I mean, this lady is amazing. She kept me calmer than was possible, I think. But then I had to keep her calm this afternoon when we found out, Frank, that you weren't coming because of airplane travel. It is now indeed my honor to introduce to you the president of the Ulysses S. Grant Association, who will speak to us by telephone. But he is the Chief Justice, recently retired, of the Rhode Island Supreme Court. I think the best way to describe Frank Williams is to say that he is a Renaissance man in our 21st century of specialization. He is a Vietnam War veteran and the winner of the Bronze Star there. He's a leading American jurist, serving both his state in various judicial capacities and serving the nation as the chief judge on the United States Court of Military Commission Review, established to deal with the issue of justice for detainees at Guantanamo. Mississippi State University recognized Justice Williams.
Damn, I lost him. I'm out.
Uh-oh. Well, that was me, Frank. I hit the wrong button, so. You missed the best part. I was saying nice things about you, so. But I'm going to continue. In any case, Mississippi State University some years ago recognized Justice Williams' contributions by naming him the MSU Jurist of the Year. But in truth, Frank Williams does a lot more than just his day job. He's a member of the National Lincoln Bicentennial Commission. He is chair of the Lincoln Forum, the premier national organization studying Abraham Lincoln. He and his wife, Virginia, are major collectors of Lincolnia. For over 15 years, he has been the president and driving force of the Ulysses S. Grant Association. And I can tell you that Mississippi State University has no better friend than Frank Williams. He was an early supporter of the grant papers coming to Mississippi State University, despite the fact that offers were made by other institutions, very good offers, in fact. But he worked long and hard with us to get it done. And as a result of his work and the great work of Francis Coleman and so many other people that I could mention, that we are indeed having these papers in our library. So it is a distinct honor and a pleasure for me to introduce to you by telephone my good friend, and more importantly, Mississippi State University's good friend, Chief Justice Frank J. Williams. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
I think we're good.
Good. Thank you very much for that introduction, John. As the late impresario Sol Uric said, it's so nice to hear your eulogy while you're still alive. I feel like a fellow Mississippian and a member of the MSU family this evening, even though I couldn't be there physically with you. It's been a long road over the future and settlement of the papers of Ulysses S. Grant and the future of a very important historical project and the study of a great American. And I thank all at MSU who had a hand in this, especially John Masalek and Jean Masalek for their faith and belief in the future of the Grant papers. And I want to say something about Dean Coleman, too. Dean, you've belied the reputation of librarians as being timid. You're far from timid. You're bold and courageous, and you believed in the project and it coming to MSU while we were in litigation in another state. And when there was no agreement or contract between the Grant Association and MSU, and what we did with John as an intermediary was to believe each other's word. And for that, I'm very grateful. You know, as a judge, we look at contracts, but we started our relationship on a handshake. And that says a lot to me about you and the family at MSU. So for that, I'm very grateful. President Keenum, your support has been invaluable for the relocation and housing and hosting of the thousands and thousands of documents relating to General President Ulysses S. Grant and his contemporaries and colleagues. And think about this man, even though some in Mississippi think of him not with great fondness. Just think of him, wreathed in cigar smoke, impassive in mien, reticent in speech, emotionally undemonstrative. He was inscrutable to his contemporaries. And General William T. Sherman, his close friend, about whom John Masalek wrote the classic biography, said, "He is a mystery to me, and I believe he is a mystery to himself." And this project, such as it's been completed in a way by the late John Y. Simon and continued by John Masalek and his staff, will help unveil the mystery of a great American for our history and our legacy. You know, Grant was modestly self-reliant and accustomed to making do with what he was given without asking for more. And he defined himself in action, not talk. And he was dutiful, intensely loyal to his superiors and friends, and brave as well. His behavior at Appomattox was beyond reproach, offering generous terms to General Robert E. Lee's army, and he vigorously defended those terms later when Lee was threatened with arrest. So don't we think and know how important it is to get behind this man and to try to understand him further? And the fact that MSU and its president and its library dean and its faculty and staff and students appreciate this and understand this reveals to me what a great community spirit you have there at MSU, and we're all eternally grateful for your faith in this project. Thank you very much.
Judge Williams. Did we lose him? Judge Williams.
Yes.
We are now in the process of John Masalek and our President, Dr. Keenum, to sign the papers. So if there's a little silence here, that we've not gone away, we're working.
Well, good. And I'm glad it's someone else signing it other than this judge. Only kidding.
This is the first time I've seen our new president's his signature, and I can read it.
My mother would be proud.
Thank you both. We will now hear from our friends, the library president, Chip Templeton.
Good evening. It's an honor to get to have a few words tonight to share. Dave Jason, as many of you know, has worked with the Templeton collection here at the library the last several years out of New York City, and every time he comes down here, he's just amazed at this particular building and this university. And I can't tell you how excited I was to call him a few weeks ago and say, you big folks in New York City have Grant's tomb. Well, we have his heart of all of his life's work right here in this library. That was a fun phone call. Before I make a couple of Grant comments, I'd like to talk about the Friends of the Library. Not to give you a speech on that, but we need to reflect on something. One of the ingredients into having a world-class library is to have a Friends of the Library program. This is an unofficial club, so to speak. There are no dues, there's no anything. There's a spirit that we need to have. Imagine tomorrow's basketball game with Ole Miss and no fans were there in maroon and white. We probably would still win, I think. But the score might be a little different. And that is where we, the Friends, come in. And so we have two purposes, I think. We have no rule book, so we kind of go by the seat of our pants here. So I see us as cheering from the stands. So we need to do that. We are the ambassadors of this library. So we get to spread the good news. The other thing we get to do, I think, is to get some cover. Now, Dean Coleman, she loves to brag about the staff in this university. And you know who she does not brag on? She'll never brag on herself. That's what we're taught to do, be polite, not brag on ourselves. But the Friends get to do the cover for that. So we get to brag on her. We get to brag on the staff. It's amazing what they do at this organization. I see them behind the scenes. It's amazing. We get to cheer for our administration, what they mean to this library. We get to cheer for you, Dr. Marzalek, with the research that's going to go on. All of you other historians in here of the papers and documents that are going to be written about this collection. We get to cheer for our students. I know I've heard Dean Coleman mention this many times. We're here, if nothing else, but for that freshman who's making their first trip into this, what could be an intimidating environment, to make this a special place for their learning. That concludes my friend's comment. So we consider you designated ambassadors. Now, the collections. One thing I've learned by working with Dean Coleman and the staff here is that we have a little unofficial rule that collections are not the end of something. Collections are the beginning of something. And they must be a living collection. And they've got to mean something to somebody. I was amazed to find out some of the major universities that had wonderful collections and had all these wonderful awards, but their collections were in the basement with dust on them. That doesn't happen at the special place. Ours are living collections. So I ask you, what could this collection mean to you on a personal basis? So, as I was thinking last night what to say to you, I asked myself the same question. And I came up with a couple of things I'd like to share with you in closing. Both sides of my family have been Mississippians since before the Civil War. My mother was from Ripley, Mississippi, up in Tippah County, right at the Tennessee border. And a lot of talk never was really about the Civil War, but I knew what side we were on. Those wounds had healed generations ago, but I remember last night trying to think of something from my early childhood, and one of my very first memories ever, probably was in about the first grade. I went to Ripley and I visited with my great-grandfather, and he took me by the hand. I remember walking out because I had to hold my hand like this to walk with him. And he said, "I want to give you something." And he gave me a tintype little booklet, and in that was a picture of my great-great-great, how many greats, grandfather in his Civil War uniform. No stories about it, but just that silent, "This is for you." And I always thought it was special that he would entrust me with that. Never was it a big important part of my life, but last night I was thinking I did have something to connect with this grant collection about. And maybe you do too, if you'll go home and think about it. So this morning, I went to my son here in Starkville, and I said, "Son, I have a gift for you." And I gave that to him. So the excitement that he had in his eyes of receiving that gift are the same excitement we have in receiving this, I'll call it gift, to our university. So all that's old is fresh again. That's one angle I took on that. The other thing is, before we had these documents to be signed, when I thought of General Grant, Chief Justice, I'm holding a $50 bill with General Grant's picture on it. $50 is what Grant's picture was worth to me. Now that we've signed these papers, it's priceless. It's a treasure. It can't be measured. President Grant now resides here in this library, in our university, as a living collection. Welcome to your new home, President Grant. We honor you. We're going to take care of you now. We thank you for your service to our country. We yearn to gain knowledge from you that will strengthen our nation, that will make this a better world. Now, after those serious comments, we're going to lighten it up. We've had our food blessed. We've had some great conversation. We've had an official signing and acceptance of these papers. And now, Chief Justice, we're not going to have dinner, we're going to have supper. That's what we call it in the South. And so with that, we are going to now enjoy a wonderful evening of fellowship and food. And Chief Justice, we wish you were here for your Southern cooking, but you'll have it here the next time you come. So good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.